Howdy! Welcome to this week's Sit and Sip with Dr. Megan Rose. It's me. Today we're discussing conscious evolution and co-creation. Some of my favorite topics. Hi, Cindy. So this is week 4 of a 6-week series that arises out of my years of research and practice as a practitioner scholar of esoteric spirituality and religion. Today we're going to go for about 45 minutes as usual, and at the end I'll be sharing an exciting opportunity that I hinted at last week for you to learn more about today's topic. So stay tuned till the end, and I promise I'll stay on at the end and answer any questions you may have. So if you can hold on to any really important questions till then, as you know, I usually look through the chat and will answer ones that are in the flow. But anything important, I don't want them to get lost. So make sure that you save them till the end of the presentation. So let's start today with a quote from Futurist and grandmother of conscious evolution, Barbara Marx Hubbard. So Barbara said, "There's a new species of humanity emerging everywhere among us. Homo universalis is made up of our evolving spirituality, of our evolving vocational and social initiatives, and innovations in every field, and made up of high-tech genius. We have a new species that can restore the earth, free the people, and explore the universe." Really exciting, really beautiful. So here's another quote, and this is from my book on spirit marriage, which is coming out in March. "Undertaking a spirit marriage leads to greater autonomy and power, and to becoming one's own spiritual authority. Spirit marriage results in a kind of self-governance. This allows the practitioner to claim their personal power and act in full agency of for themselves and their community. These actions stand over and against whatever dominating culturally normative forces may have been telling them. Spirit marriage leads to audacity of spirit, spiritual transformation, and even social change. I contend, then, that the primary goal of spirit marriage is not only liberation and transformation of the individual, but ultimately the transformation of society and the evolution of the planet towards what futurist Barbara Marx Hubbard refers to as the Homo spiritus or Homo universalis." Exciting. So we're going to get into this idea a little bit more today, so stay tuned. Hi, Robin. Hi, JJ. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Cindy. So happy to see you all on the chat today. So, for those of you who are just joining us, you're tuned in to Sit and Sip with Dr. Megan Rose, and this week we're discussing conscious evolution and co-creation with the spirit realms. So, as I said, I'm Dr. Megan Rose, and I have a PhD in East-West psychology from the California Institute of Integral Studies, and a master's degree in religion and society from the Graduate Theological Union. I'm an initiated ceremonial magician, a Shakta Tantric practitioner, and a fairy seer. I also serve as an ordained interfaith minister and psycho-spiritual counselor in the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. And today we're diving into one of my favorite topics, something that I've been studying for well over 20 years now, and that is conscious evolution and co-creation. But before we go there, let's just recap what we've discussed in our last 3 Sit and Sips, because each of these chats are building upon the other. So over the last 3 weeks, we've laid the foundation for today's talk by exploring the ideas of normalizing the paranormal, animism and reenchantment, and spirit marriage. First, we discussed normalizing the paranormal by decolonizing our ways of knowing and constructing knowledge, and by rethinking our ideas about what's normal versus what's paranormal. Then we talked about animism and how Earth is a living, breathing intelligence, full of animate, intelligent life at all strata of consciousness. and how we can re-enchant our lives by becoming a participant in the cosmos rather than just an objective observer. And that we do this through story, through myth-making, and embracing the mystery. Last week, we talked about developing intimate, bonded relationships with otherworldly or paranormal beings, what I call spirit marriage. So today, we're going to explore a topic that flows out of these first 3 sit and sips. Really, it's actually where the rubber hits the road in my mind with all of this. And that is the ideas of conscious evolution and co-creation with spirits, earth, the other world, etc. So before we go there, are there any lingering questions from last week that folks want to ask? So I'm just going to take a moment and check in here in the chat thread. And nope, I don't see any questions yet. So we will keep rolling. What I will tell you is that I did get a couple of questions about discernment of the spirits, or how do we discern good versus bad spirits. And this is a topic that we'll go into quite a bit in depth when I offer my course, when we do my course this fall in October, begins in October. But the short of it is this. We often think of spirits as these all-powerful or all-knowing or beyond human nature kinds of beings. And certainly there are spirits that really don't have anything or not very much in common with sort of human ways of being in the world. But the way I like to look at it is this. Spirits or the other world or the fairy are a class of being that have their own rules, their own morals, their own ethics. They don't necessarily always jive or follow along with what we consider to be ethical or moral in amongst humans. But to ask whether they're good or bad comprehensively, I think is a little bit of a misnomer. Because would you say humans are good or bad? Not really. We wouldn't try and divide, this is a good human and this is a bad human, right? We have much more gradation and much more complexity. And so to talk about, all of this kind of spirit is good and all of that kind of spirit is bad, or all fairy are dangerous, or all angels are benevolent, I think is a little misleading. Because what we know is spirits have their own agendas, they have their own jobs that they're doing, and some of that involves co-creation with humans, and some of it doesn't. And certainly, just like humans, there are people out there that you would want to be highly discerning around and that might be considered just flat out dangerous. Same thing in the other world. There are spirits out there that are just dangerous that you don't want to necessarily try and develop a relationship with. But by and large, a lot of those beings don't want to develop a relationship with us either. And we can get into some of the more permutations of what are called like vengeful spirits or mischievous spirits. We won't talk about that today. We can unpack that a little bit more in the course. But suffice it to say, a general rule of thumb is approach the other world like you would approach the human world, which is you want to discern who you're working with, you want to get to know them, you want to, like, the know, like, and trust factor, right? You want to know, like, and trust them, and you want to spend time cultivating that relationship like you would any relationship, and look for the red flags, which aren't necessarily red flags that they demonstrate. I mean, they may be demonstrating red flags, but more it's the internal red flags that come up for you when you're working with, especially with disembodied or discarnate beings. All right. So, anything on that? Nope. All right. We're going to move along then. So, this may sound familiar for you from those of you that saw my post on Tuesday, but I think it bears repeating. Have you ever heard the saying, yesterday's science fiction is today's science fact? I actually think about this a lot. So the tricorders dreamed up in 1960s in Star Trek are basically our cell phones nowadays. I mean, it must have been so unbelievable back then, so make-believe to think about this, little device here being able to do all the computational things that it does. And yet here we are some 60 odd years later, and chances are you're watching this talk on something approaching to a tricorder technology or a tablet technology. I also think about how atoms, Wi-Fi, and even microbiology at one point were someone's fantasy. Like most discoveries, one day someone thought, I wonder if... And then they ran with it. And voila, science took a giant leap forward, and we discovered that what was seemingly impossible was actually just waiting for us to develop the sensitivity of either instrument or ourself to perceive it. So in my mind, these things totally relate to consciousness and spiritual growth. We may never be able to scientifically prove the existence of spirits or of the paranormal, at least not to the satisfaction of hardcore skeptics or scientific materialists. But what we do know is that the numbers of people who are exploring animist and ecological spirituality in all its various forms are on the increase. So, what is happening as a result of these explorations with animist and otherworldly spirituality is that we seem to be waking up a kind of suprahuman consciousness, what Barbara Marx Hubbard called the Homo universalis. It's the next rung on the evolutionary ladder as a species. Homo universalis carries the awareness that we are inextricably embedded in conscious living organism, in a conscious living organism called Earth or Gaia. We talked about this in the animist sit and sit. This includes this living organism, right? It includes humans, it includes animals, it includes plants, it includes minerals, and the yet to be perceived, sometimes called the other world. And we may meet the other world through a variety of different ways. We may meet it out in nature, or if we're in a trance-inducing meditation, if we're doing a sacred medicine journey, in our dreams. At the very minimum, we meet the other world when we're drawing our final breath and we cross over. But make no mistake, we will all eventually get there. Like Jim Morrison said, no one gets out of here alive. And I would add to that, without meeting a spirit or two. It sounds kind of like fantasy, perhaps. But what seems like inconceivable fiction and impossible to prove can actually be the springboard for discovery. It's only through our imagination that we can push the boundaries of the known universe. And remember, we talked about what imagination actually is. It's not fantasy and make-believe. It's the imaginal realm where things form and shape and take on ideation, take on intelligence before they're brought down into the incarnational or the physical. So this is certainly what many indigenous researchers are advocating for, letting go of our Western scientific need to prove everything, down to the bits and bytes, and instead leaning into the mystery of the universe and the knowledge that, as the bard once said, there are more things on heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. I love that quote. So does any of this resonate with you? Are these things that you also think about? If so, drop a comment below if you have any thoughts or if anything is feeling really activating for you. And if not, we'll move on. All right. So, a definition, conscious evolution. You've probably been getting a feel for this, but let's just unpack what the conscious evolutionaries say about conscious evolution. So conscious evolution is the evolution of evolution, from unconscious to conscious choice. While consciousness has been evolving for billions of years, conscious evolution is new. It's the part of the trajectory of human evolution, the canvas of choice before us now, as we recognize that we've come to possess the powers that we used to attribute to the gods. We'll talk more about that in a second. So conscious evolution is humanity becoming conscious of the fact that our actions, our thoughts, beliefs, and choices can affect and do affect our evolutionary trajectory as a species and as a planet. We unconsciously have evolved for billions of years, until at some tipping point we became conscious of our own self, and bam, we shifted from Homo Neanderthal to Homo sapien. Okay, maybe it wasn't a bam. Maybe it was more like a creep or a stretch. But you get the point. All of a sudden, Homo Neanderthal gone, bye-bye, and Homo sapien, hello, I can think, I'm aware of my own thoughts. This is fantastic. However, now we're experiencing a similar tipping point, what Barbara Marx Hubbard called a birth crisis. The moment where we must become conscious of our own embeddedness and interconnectedness in the very mind body of Earth and all of her various layers of being. Or, failing to do this, we perish as a species. And this requires that we become what Barbara called the Homo Universalis, or the Homo Spiritus. And we do this by cultivating awareness of our interconnectedness as a species and as a planetary being. And we do this, we'll talk about this in a second, by co-creating with the other world. I personally believe that nothing less than this will save us from the current trajectory we are on towards ecological and societal collapse. So, how does that sit with you? What would it be like to understand that your interactions with the spirits of the land and the subtle realms of Earth are a co-evolutionary project? I'm going to look over here for a second and see as you put your thoughts in the comments. Vivian says, yes, I love everything you're sharing. This feels so affirming and inspiring. Yeah. And Lynn Leslie says it feels connected in dreams. She feels connected in dreams, and that the tipping point between involution and evolution. Yeah, involution versus evolution. That's an interesting concept. Involution being coming into the body, and evolution being moving us forward. So we come in and then we move out, and we come in and we move out. So I'm just going to move this over here. Just give me a second to adjust here. There we go. So I'll be able to see a little bit better. All right. Okay. So, conscious evolution naturally then leads to the co-creation of to the idea of co-creation with the spirits. I believe that at critical points in the history, the spirits have interceded in human development to hasten our evolution, give us a little boost, so to speak. And they did this through intermingling themselves in their consciousness with ours. This is at the heart of the practice of spirit marriage. We commingle our human consciousness in devoted, disciplined, and discerning relationship with the extraordinary consciousness of non-human or more than human beings. And we can do this in a variety of ways, from ecological exchange with root and rock and tree, to otherworldly encounters with spirits, with spirit beings like deities, fairies, and ancestors. From this, spirit marriage practitioners can develop co-creative consciousness with a superhuman intelligence, which can then lead to the development of extraordinary abilities. Ooh. Say more about that. Okay, I will. In fact, while I was conducting my research, I spoke with a number of practitioners who experienced expanded perception, or ESP, precognition, which is knowing things that are going to happen before they happen, and seemingly miraculous psychophysical manifestations as a byproduct of their marriage. We also spoke about how marrying spirits evolve us as a species, and specifically how they help us develop our psychic gifts. So a couple of examples. Orion Foxwood, who is my mentor and who I interviewed for my research in the book, talked about how when he married his spirit wife Bree, he was living outside of Washington, D.C., and it was the middle of winter and there was snow on the ground, and he had built a fairy cairn. They had built, not during the winter, but when the weather was nice, they had built this beautiful fairy cairn, which is like a rock mandala. And he would go every day to sit in the fairy cairn and meet with Bree and meditate. He called it his coffee clutch because he would take his coffee and they would sit and they would just commune with each other. And he said when she was really proving to him, she was wanting to prove to him that she was real and that she was this powerful nature spirit, she caused these blue flowers to bloom through the snow in the middle of winter to show him that she was real and that she actually was this valid entity that he was working with, which he said was extraordinary. I mean, that never happens. And another example is Suzette, who's a New Orleans voodoo mambo, was given psychic guidance and information in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, that the spirits told her what to do so that she could stay safe through the hurricane, and none of her she has this menagerie of animals. None of her belongings were destroyed during the hurricane because they had given her this specific guidance about what to do. So those are just a couple of examples. But it also, co-creation with spirit, also often gives rise to co-creative projects out in the world. For example, this research that I'm sharing with you, my book, my dissertation, is all a co-creative love child, as Orion calls it, of my union with my spirit spouse. In fact, the way that I got my book deal is so extraordinary because I wasn't even finished with my dissertation yet. And I hadn't defended. I was in my final semester of coursework, and I remember tuning into my spirit spouse and saying, if I were to publish this book, I would want to publish it with, this publisher. I think they'd be a really good fit for me. And if not this publisher, this other publisher. And about a week after I had just sort of had that conversation with Gwen, my friend called me up on the phone, who is an author and writes for, actually he didn't call me on the phone, I take that back, he Facebooked me, I think it was, email or Facebook. He reached out to me anyway, and he said, hey, he is an author for that publishing house, who writes for them. And he said, hey, I was having dinner with the editor-in-chief over here, and I mentioned your research, and he's really interested, and he really wants to publish you. And I thought, I'm not even ready for this yet. I haven't even defended my dissertation, but there it was. So I had a book deal in the cooker, happening before I even finished the dissertation. So that's one of, I thought that was truly extraordinary, considering how, difficult it can be to get books published nowadays. So I'm curious, have any of you here had an experience of a spirit giving you extrasensory capabilities? Or has any of your spirit contacts tasked you with a specific project? So drop that in the comments if you want to share your experiences, because I think those are really important to collect. All right. It's through honoring our relationship to Earth as a sacred body and engaging in the art of eco-spiritual practice that humanity becomes a conscious co-creator in Gaia consciousness. and our own bodies become the interface point for this exchange. So this idea of waking up then is not a transcendent state of escape or even like a elevation necessarily, but more so, I see it as a radical indwelling of the divine, right, within ourselves and within our planet. And as we consciously evolve ourselves into the shape of the Homo universalis, we began to share levels of awareness with each other, with other humans, other species, other realms, and with the planet in general. What some folks may call unity consciousness. But this isn't really about being a hive mind like the Borg. Unity consciousness. I think that what unity conscious really entails is the ability to stabilize oneself psychologically, physiologically, and psychically in your divine self and your spirit beloved, while at the same time being acutely attuned to Earth and her morphogenetic fields. So, if we can do this, if we can show up more and more as conscious co-creators, we will begin to affect the level of consciousness shift that is needed to make a deep and lasting change to our species, precipitated by these extraordinary alliances. And I believe we have the capacity to transform the planet when we as a species, supported by our extraordinary allies, come together in our vulnerability and our imperfections, and we envision a world that works for everyone. So, I'd love to hear what you've received so far. Any insights, gems, or breakthroughs. It's all welcome. So take a moment and type in the chat anything you'd like to share, and I'll take a moment to acknowledge and reflect on your comments. So I'm just going to look over here, and Jonathan, JJ says, spirits in the land and the walkers on it. Yes, that's all of us. Lynn Leslie says, now is a new tipping point to conscious evolution. Exactly. Robin says, my spirit lover is teaching me how to shine light out into the world to transmute negative energies to positive, becoming a creatrix. Beautiful. Yeah. So, our co-creative relationship, our co-creative partnerships with our spirit partners, whether we're married or whether we're just in, a deep communication, they are not bound to just writing a book like I did or developing a whole teaching system like Orion did, but they can be the simple things from how we show up in our lives, in our families, in our communities, to art projects and the art that we put out into the world, to the way that we conduct our business and the way that we offer our skills and our gifts to the world. In fact, one of the people that I interviewed, Madrone, is a shrine keeper in the West African Dagara tradition, and she is married to a spirit called Tingan, and Tingan is like the masculine representation or the masculine manifestation of Earth. And what Tingan helps us with is feeling grounded, feeling secure. It's about he's sort of the spirit that the Dagara people work with on wealth and stability. And not coincidentally, Madrone's muggle job, her job out in the world, is a financial advisor. And so she sees this really deep interplay between her intimate relationship with Tingan in their marriage and how she serves the Dagara community, but also how he flows into and advises, even though her job in the financial advising world does not, she doesn't openly practice or talk about her spirit marriage or even her spirituality. Tingan is there, Tingan is advising, Tingan is flowing, and part of because of the nature of their marriage, part of what she does in service to her clients. Yeah, so Anne says, this is resonating and reassuring. Yay, thanks, Anne. And Max says it's because of one of their spirit loves that they are at CIIS, at the California Institute of Integral Studies. Yes, they lead us places that we would not have imagined. In fact, my spirit spouse is the reason I went to CIIS. I was given a really powerful dream and shown this school that I was going to study spirit marriage at, because the contact had been happening for a while, and I'd been taking notes, and I'd been doing my own sort of ancillary research. But I had this really strong sort of precognitive dream that was like, you're going to go to this school, and you're going to study this, and it's going to be in this specific form and context. And I didn't know the school. I saw the school, but I didn't know what the name of it was. And I went to a couple of different schools in the Bay Area to see which one was, a good fit. And when I walked into CIIS, it was the exact image. It was exact resemblance of my dream. It had this like wood paneling, and there was these very specific cues. And so I know that was a precognition given to me by my spirit spouse to guide me to the right place that would be, what I call the incubator or the womb space for my research. So thank you for your shares. This is fantastic. I'm glad this is resonating with you. And in a moment, I'm going to do some Q&A to answer any questions you have about anything that I've covered today. But I want to tell you a story first. So a few years ago, I got an email from a woman, and she was being contacted by a spirit who said he wanted to marry her. And she really had no idea what to do. She didn't really know how to navigate it, and she couldn't find anyone really that was talking about this much, and she didn't really have any resources much for how to figure out what to do with a relationship. And then she Googled spirit marriage, and she found a research paper that I had written way back in 2011. Which was actually the foundational research paper I wrote for what would become the dissertation. So she reached out to me. And for the past 3 years, we've been working together to cultivate what I call the 3 Ds of spirit marriage, really the 3 pillars of my practice and teaching around spirit marriage. And they are devotion, discernment, and discipline. And from our work together, she was able to safely and sanely step into a spirit marriage, and even more importantly, develop the confidence and trust that she could share this sacred relationship with her friends and family. Through working with me, she's been able to make her relationship with her spirit beloved not just part of her world, but the primary relationship in a living spirituality that's become the foundation of her life. She now has a vocabulary for this way of being and can speak about it to others in a way that is consistent and logical and clear. And she's no longer concerned that these experiences are imagined or that her drive to connect with her spirit partner is just ego-based. She has a sense of autonomy and integrity in her relationship with the spirits and in her practice of relating to them that she didn't have before. She says that her spirit marriage is a veritable lifeline to a bigger reality and has given her a sense of trust in the evolution of the human species. She truly believes that these kinds of relationships across the veil and the personal growth that they engender may yet save our planet and its inhabitants from devastation. Pretty cool, I think. Yeah? So this is it. This is why I'm so passionate about helping folks. Because if you want to find this kind of normalizing, grounding, and a sense of security, because I want you to find this kind of normalization, grounding, and a sense of security with your contacts as well. I want you to have the experience that she had. And it's why I've dedicated over 20 years of my life to educating and supporting people in cultivating extraordinary relationships and in navigating paranormal experiences in general. So, I've shared some powerful information these past few weeks about normalizing the paranormal, about animism and reenchantment and spirit marriage. And I've done it all with the hope that in it, you'll find the kind of normalization, coherence, and grounding in your own extraordinary experiences. But real talk, it's going to take more than a few 1-hour Facebook Lives to truly cultivate a grounded, intimate relationship with another worldly being, right? So I'd like to share about how we could work together to help you expand upon and deepen what you're learning in here in these sit and sips, okay? Yeah? All right, I'm seeing some hearts and some love, and Lynn says, does it make our work easier if we have a partner on the other side reaching across the veil? I think it does. I think it makes our work a whole lot easier. Karen says, our spirit friend number 1 is kind of relentless in showing me how to subvert judgment into grace and acceptance. He can be kind of a pain in the arse. Yeah, they push us to evolve, and sometimes that's we evolve paranormal capacities, and sometimes we have to evolve psychospiritually and emotionally too. I went through a huge transformation in my worldview, right? And when learning about and stepping into my paranormal relationship. I talked about that, I think maybe in my first chat, where I was saying I went from pagan light to like pagan on steroids or something like that. Animist extraordinaire. Judy Ann says, I'm so interested in being in a spirit marriage. However, how do I know if my spirit wants the same? That's a great question, Judy Ann. I'm going to save that till the end because I think that is a really important question. So post it again if we get to the end and I forget about it, please. So I'd like to share more about how we can work together, because I want to support you in feeling grounded, safe, and sane in your paranormal and otherworldly experiences, particularly if you're experiencing or interested in an intimate and bonded relationship with a spirit. So today, drumroll, I'm opening the doors. I mentioned this last week, and today is the day that I'm opening the doors to my first ever online course on spirit marriage. It's called Spirit Marriage 101, Cultivating a Bonded Relationship with an Otherworldly Being. So this is going to be a 6-week course, and it will help you build a strong foundation with an extraordinary being. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a spirit spouse. It could also be your divine self. We're going to talk about that next week. So just as a side note, Judy Ann, if you don't have an extraordinary being, a spirit, a deity, a fairy, whatever, asking to marry you, you can start with your divine self, which I would say, even if you do have a spirit ringing your doorbell, that starting with your divine self is really the way to go. That's a great thing that we should be doing at least alongside, because divine self-work is all about stepping into your spiritual sovereignty, and we'll talk all about that next week. So this is an opportunity. I think I might have said this, but I'm going to say it again in case I didn't. It's an opportunity for you to get never before released information on spirit marriage, drawn from my years of research and practice, content from my forthcoming book, and some great one-on-one community support, in your practice and inquiry into cultivating a spirit marriage. Because, honestly, most of the folks that reach out to me about spirit marriage feel pretty isolated and lonely. They think that it's weird. They think that it's strange. They think that they're the only one. They're not sure if they're entirely losing their marbles. I was just talking to someone today who said, I thought maybe for a while I just had a brain lesion. And I was like, I've thought that too. I need to get a brain scan in the early days before I found out that this was actually a thing. So perhaps the spirits have been ringing your doorbell and are asking for a deeper commitment. Or maybe you've already married a spirit, but you would love to be able to talk about it more openly in a safe container with like-minded folks who support and uplift you, as well as maybe get some additional tools to deepen your relationship. It's all about community. Yes. Maybe you are just curious about this topic. Something about it resonates with you and you're not sure exactly how it fits with where you're headed, but you want to learn more. Great. Then this course is for you. Awesome. However, I want to be clear. Although I do have a PhD in psychology and years of training and experience as a psychospiritual guide, I am not a psychotherapist or a licensed mental health clinician, which means if you're currently experiencing distressing mental health issues, which make it difficult for you to communicate clearly, show up and participate, or hold space for others in the course, and you're not currently under psychiatric or psychotherapeutic care, then this course may not be a good fit for you. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I want us to feel really safe and grounded together. And that means we're going in together and we're holding this space together. And I might be shining the flashlight of where we're going next, but we're all really showing up. Total personal responsibility, 100% for the container that we're creating together. Okay, so here's the juicy bits. This course will teach you how to deepen with an existing spirit contact or how to reach to a new one. Again, Judy-Ann, if you don't have one, this will teach you how to cultivate one. And just to briefly answer, can you ask them to marry you versus them asking you? The short answer is yes, you can. This just like I was saying earlier with a human, would you ask another human to marry you, or would you only wait for somebody that you wanted to marry to propose to you? Setting aside all the sort of gender, hetero, blah, 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 that says, women can't propose or whatever. Like setting all that aside, you can propose if you want to. It'll also help you cultivate a sense of agency, sovereignty, and personal transformation through your spirit communications. It'll help you discern the desired contact from an undesired one. It'll help you devote yourself to depthful spirit relationship. Here's the 3 Ds. And it'll help you discipline your magical body. You will walk away with a solid foundation of knowledge about spirit marriage, a practice that awakens the divine self within you called entheosis, tools and exercises to further cultivate these types of relationships, key practices for undertaking your own spiritual union, and you'll feel empowered, assured, and confident that you can navigate these realms safely and sanely. Each week, you're going to get a pre-recorded video presentation from me, and then a few days later, we'll meet on Zoom for our group session for our community building. And everything will be recorded so that if you can't be there live, you'll still be able to participate. And you can always ask questions or make requests in the Facebook group for me to cover things in our next group meeting, as well as reach out to me privately because I'll be available. Here's what's included in the course. So you're going to have 6 pre-recorded live video presentations on each week's topic, 6 weekly live group Zoom meetings where you'll learn new tools and practices, explore the topic of that week in breakout groups, receive hot seat coaching, and have time for Q&A. You'll have a robust workbook that really takes it all to a deeper level with deepening questions, exercises, and sneak peek quotes from my forthcoming book. You'll have access to a private Facebook group just for our class where you can ask questions, receive support, and share your experiences. And I'll be on the Facebook group a lot, so anything outside of those group sessions we'll be able to cultivate in the Facebook group together. You'll also get a one-on-one coaching session with me where I can customize the tools and practices you're learning to your unique life circumstances, as well as support you in deepening your spirit-beloved connection. It's a lot for 6 weeks. Really is. So I sat down and I actually did the math and calculated up all the hours and all of the different things that we're offering. And I realized that the value of this course really, if I were to just price it at cost, would be around more than actually $2,500. But that's a lot of money. I'm not going to ask you to pay that. I'm really committed actually to inclusivity and to making this material available to a wide range of folks, like I said last week. So I'm offering 3 different levels of enrollment. You'll get the same exclusive content and access no matter which level you sign up for. But I want folks to feel this material isn't only reserved for like a certain class or echelon of people. So here are the 3 levels. The student level is $500. So you can pay it in full and you save $25, or you can break it up into 3 monthly payments. And this is true for all of these. So that's just the basic student level. I'm also offering a limited number of partial scholarships, and these are set aside for those in need of financial assistance. You'll need to, when you fill out or apply for the course, you'll need to fill out a little section for your scholarship application. And the scholarships are provided in part by the generosity of sponsors, which we'll talk about next. So my scholarship level is $250, and you can also break that up into 3 monthly payments as well. The final level is something I feel really strongly about, and that is the sponsor level. This level is $750, and what you're doing at this level is supporting another community member to come in at the scholarship level. So in addition to your own enrollment, you'll be sponsoring a scholarship level enrollment by paying half of their tuition. And at the sponsor level, if you pay in full, you can save $50, and you can also break it up into 3 installments. And the reason I'm doing that is because that I really want to encourage the ethos and the idea that we are interdependent and interconnected. And I know that at times in my life and in my relationships, when I've had more money, I've sponsored people. And then there are times in my life where I've really needed the scholarship. And so I feel like I want to hold us all to that opportunity and to that modeling of supporting each other. And one more thing. I'm really excited about this because I've pulled together some exclusive bonus content that is really juicy. So first of all, I have a bonus class called Entheosis, Awakening the Divine Within, and it goes much deeper into cross-cultural spiritual technologies, more than we would be able to cover in just 6 weeks. And so you'll get that class as part of this, as part of your enrollment. And then I've set up 3 amazing interviews with experts in the fields of spirit contact, divine self technologies, and entheogenic work. And these are really top of their cream of the crop, top of their practice in these particular topics. And so I'm really excited to be bringing this material and bringing in, essentially somebody to talk about their experience of devotion in their divine self tradition. And to talk, I have a medium coming in and talking about spirit communication, and I have a plant spirit medicine woman coming in and talking about discipline and the dieta and disciplining the magical body. And I'm super excited about those bonus. So I truly believe in the magic of what I'm offering. And so I guarantee all of my courses, which means if you participate wholeheartedly in the first week, and if you do the work honestly and you don't feel like you're getting any of the value from the experience, you've done the work, but you're just not getting anything out of it, then you can email me by midnight on Thursday, October the 21st, with your answers to the discussion questions and receive a full refund. So the course starts on October 14th, and you have until the 21st to decide whether you want to stay in it or not. All right. So if it sounds like something that you're interested in, then I encourage you to apply today. And the reason is I'm intentionally limiting the enrollment so that we can create a really safe, tight, and intimate group together. A community, right? I want you to get to know each other. I want you to feel safe and held and share your wisdom. So I'm going to post the link right now into the comments where you can go and check it out. Check out the course. And then as soon as we're done here, you can go and apply. All right. So that's it for today. We're a little over, but by our 45 minutes, but I'm going to stay on for maybe another 5 till 6 to answer any questions. And next week, we're going to be talking about entheosis and the divine self. What's entheosis, you say? Well, tune in next week and you'll find out. All right. Until then, feel free to DM me with any questions you may have. If you don't want to put them in the public chat here, that's fine. I'll stay on now to answer any questions or respond to any comments you may have. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next week. Many blessings. All right. I'm just going to look through. Okay. So Judy Ann says, I'm interested in being in a spirit marriage. However, how do I know if my spirit wants the same? Yeah, so that's what I talked about. You can woo them like you would woo any person that you wanted to marry you and see how they respond, right? And oftentimes if we're feeling the draw to that level of a connection, there's something about them, there's something about the connection that may be faded. And I see that you say you lost your fiance 7 months ago, however I still communicate with him. So if that's the spirit that you're feeling drawn to, I think, Judy Ann, you and I have a consult coming up soon, don't we? Let's talk about that more, because there's actually, and I talked about this last week in the Ming Hun, or the ghost marriage, there's actually a tradition in China where people who have died are married off to living folks, and it's called the ghost marriage. And it's a way, there's certain cultural reasons for it there, but suffice it to say, it's absolutely something that you could explore doing with your now deceased fiance. And Ida Craddock, who I talked a little bit about, I think last week, or if I haven't, she's somebody that, you should know about, an early 20th century woman who was married to an angel. The angel that she was married to, actually, when you look at her story, was the spirit of a deceased man that she had known, that had lived in a boarding house that she grew up in. And he passed on, and he ended up coming back to her, but in this sort of more rarefied angelic form, and then they were married. So there is a precedent for this. It does happen. All right. Max says, I cannot say enough about how amazing it is to be married to a spirit. It is utterly life-changing. Yes, Max, I hear that over and over and over again, that it totally transforms our lives. It certainly did with mine. Are there orgasms? Lynn asks, are there orgasms? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We'll talk about that in 2 weeks when we talk about ecosexuality and spirit sex, because there can be major orgasms. Vivian says, so much amazing wisdom, tools, and guidance from you. Wow. Thanks, love. I'm happy to have you here. Have you set a day yet? Is what... Sorry, I lost the check. There we go. Anne wants to know if I've set a day yet. Yes. So what's going to happen is the pre-recordings will come out every Friday. And then on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, we will do our Zoom calls, and they'll be about 60 to 90 minutes, depending on depending on how juicy things are getting and how much support people want. So every Tuesday evening, you will meet as a group, and again, they'll be recorded. I know I have people all over the world. I was just communicating with somebody from Spain today who's interested in taking the course, and unfortunately, trying to find a time that's going to work for everybody is going to be a little challenging. So the group meetings will be pre-recorded, but they'll be recorded in a way that the pertinent content will be recorded, and then any personal shares, you will have the option of going on record, or we can turn the recording off, and we'll do it that way. And then the breakout rooms are never recorded. So, but you'll be able to get quite a bit of robust content, and then the workbook will really take everything to a much deeper personal level. All right, I think that is it. It starts Thursday, October the 14th. will be when the course officially launches, and then Friday you'll get your first lesson, and it'll run through Tuesday, November the 23rd. So we'll end right before Thanksgiving here in the United States. And Cindy asks, is it possible to marry my land? Yes, absolutely. In fact, the Druids marry land as a very regular practice, which is wonderful. All right. This Max says, spirit sex is the best sex I've ever had. It's pretty fucking fabulous, honestly. All right. I'm sending you all much love tonight. I hope to see you on next week's Sit and Sip on Facebook. DM me. Reach out if you want to apply for the class. I would love to have everyone in it that wants to really go deep with this material. It would be my honor and privilege. All right. Have a lovely evening.